Where's the show live?
We are live. Trigger Points, episode 10 with Al Torres.
Yeehaw. What's going on?
Best appraiser in the hard money game and in Houston.
Man, that's a lot. That's but I'll take it. I say I like doing my due diligence.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show.
Man.
Really appreciate it.
Pleasure inviting me over.
Guys, please like, share, and comment while you're watching. Like, share, and comment. This is going to be a great episode on why it is important to get a good appraisal prior to closing any transaction.
Yeah, it's part of the process in making a financial decision. People need to understand that not everybody knows everything. Not everybody is able to see as many houses as an appraiser does.
Mm-hmm.
I would hear realtors say, well, I do $5 million worth of homes or $10 million worth of homes per year.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, okay, how many is that? How many is it? 10, 20, maybe 30 or something like that.
It could be 3.
Exactly. Yes. And
it could be 3.
Yes. And I tell them, well, I do about, on average, there was a time I was doing about 30 to 40 appraisals per month all over town. So that's the big, huge difference between a realtor, maybe a loan officer, or a.
Because your hands on the ground.
Yeah, we are
on the ground.
We're stepping on those potholes, going into those hoarders' homes. We're going into those mansions. We're going into everything from the nice neighborhoods to the hood. The acreage.
Mm-hmm.
We see. It just depends on the appraiser. Some appraisers like to stay in certain areas, and that's it. Other appraisers expand further out. I want to know everything. I started going way out because nobody else wanted to do it. I say, hey, this is an opportunity for me. 1, get a paycheck, and 2, see what's going on. I started back in 1997. I was going to U of H for finance, and I was living in the Westheimer Galleria area and working out there. And the condo guy said, hey, you want to do some data entry? That's how I started.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I was like, okay, is this it? They go, yeah, I want to do something else. And he said, well, you can be an appraiser if you want. I'm like, okay, well, now I say, well, I kind of got suckered into it. And
hold on, that sounds very familiar. I kind of got suckered into hard money loans.
Yeah, and it just snowballed from there. But the experience that I've gained, oh my goodness, it's like I tell folks, there's not a place around here I haven't touched.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of confusion in the industry right now that I'm seeing. There's a lot of companies out there that are offering no appraisals, can close in 48 hours. They can do all this great and wonderful things.
Yeah.
Which, hey, look, if that's what you need, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But today, I want to touch on why an appraisal is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The data that you see that the clients and the lender needs to know about.
Yep.
And 3, the overall importance of the difference between comps and the reality of what an actual appraisal will tell you. Because you can look at comps all day long.
Oh, yeah.
You can look at comps all day long and like and similar properties.
Yeah.
If you know if you're experienced and you've had enough appraisers teach you what to look for, you can say, hey, this is what we're seeing. But the average investor, the average realtor, the average anybody that's
the average family looking for a house.
The average family looking for a house.
Yep.
You got to understand certain aspects and why one house is worth, let's say, $300,000, and the other house that looks similar would be worth $250,000. So
yeah. There's a lot there's a whole process that goes into just viewing a house. There's okay. The first one you said, why is it important?
Why is it important?
Well, there's 3 things that I tell investors, and in this case, investors. One, it can save you money by saying, wow, it's not worth that much. So you say you can leave the deal and go somewhere else. So you're saving money by not spending something that is not worth it, or the ARV is worth it. That's one important thing. Two, it can make you money. You can say, oh, wow, I found a gem. So I'm buying it for this much, and it's going to be worth this much if I do this. That's where you make your money. And three, you can go back and negotiate.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's
guys, negotiation. And most investors don't use this tactic. They say, oh, well, you know, it appraised. I'm just going to go ahead and accept it. That gives you ammunition. Once it appraises for lower than what, let's say you've got a wholesaler said, no, this thing's going to sell for $280,000 or $300,000. We'll use that example.
Yeah.
But it appraised for $250,000, and the reason why it appraised is next to a railroad track.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah.
It backs up to commercial.
You know, commercial, it depends in which neighborhood it's at, because it's just if it's a nice planned neighborhood, then yes, you'll have that can impact it. But if you're going more in inner town or inner city, it's common. Like the house I went to go see the day before, it's right across from the rail system, which is a plus. It's across some commercial stuff, but it's common in that area. So that's where an experienced appraiser comes in and says, okay, how does this impact? Yes or no? And that's pretty much it.
Okay. But it gives you the power for negotiation. My whole point was, you know, when you get an appraisal, just don't accept it as the godsend of, hey, now I have to. It's your ammunition to say, hey, you said you're a wholesaler, I'm a buyer. You said it was going to sell for $300,000. I have an appraisal saying $250,000 because of these circumstances. Yeah. We need to negotiate the price here.
Yep.
So anyways, let's continue of why do you think it's very important to have these appraisals? Go through some of the things that affect appraisals.
Well, one of the reasons why it came to a point where we need appraiser, somebody doing an analysis with data, is because years back there was no such thing as appraisers. So everybody was putting on prices. They were doing this and doing that. It was just the wild, wild west. And there came a point where, hey, these people are getting hoodwinked. I mean, we're talking way back in 1930s or way back then. And all that started then, right? You know, so they said we're going to have an association of evaluators or appraisers to help determine what's the real right based on data, based on information, facts. So it just progressed from there. Now, the importance of why you need an appraisal. One, it helps legally. You can use that as it's technically a legal form report. You can take it to court. That's why when they go, hey, when there's some litigation going on in real estate, they call an appraiser or somebody, an expert in a certain market area. That's if something happens, you can always say, well, I got my appraisal. If you don't get an appraisal and you're buying something without knowing exactly the pros and the cons of what makes that value, what it is at that time and moment, you can lose your equity that you thought you had. You may be buying something more than what you believe it's worth. So like say, for instance, the house, you think, this is what I see a lot. Realtors, wholesalers, regular folks, sometimes engineers, lawyers, they think they have a value. I go, have you seen the house? Have you measured it? Have you complied any data to say, what is it? How does it compare to other houses in the neighborhood? Have you done any of that? Have you seen the materials, what they're using inside and out? Is it carpet? Is it wood floors? Is it tile? What kind of tile?
What level granite they're using?
Exactly. All those things have an impact on the perception of how people are going to purchase a house. But the reason why it's important to get it is because if something goes wrong, that appraisal can save your butt in legal proceedings.
Yes.
Okay. And I've seen it many times where there's a lot of cases, so many cases in the courts that say, I didn't get an appraisal. Why not? You should have known better. He never told me. They never told me to get an appraisal. Just they had somebody there, and it was an AVM, and automated valuation.
I got you.
One of those, whatever.
There's one. It's skipping my mind right now that real estate agents use. It's for ARVs that they use it. I can't think of the name of it. It's kind of like a automated generated BPO.
Yes, exactly.
Dang, what's the name of it? I'll think of it here in a second. When I was with Keller Williams, they taught us how to use it, and I was like, "Oh, this would be a cool tool."
Yeah.
And then just to come find out, they're pulling data kind of like Zillow does.
Yes.
It's not a true. I mean, when you first start out as a realtor, oh, this is a cool tool, blah blah blah, but it's not as in depth as an actual person putting their hands on a property and saying, hey, there's very rare times, very rare times that I'll send an appraisal to Al. He'll send it back and the square footage matches what's on the tax record.
Yeah.
Very rare that it's right on the numbers.
Well, maybe within 20 square feet.
20 square feet.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it a handful of times to where the actual square footage on the tax records and what came in was within 5 to 10 feet.
Yeah.
Every time it's 20, sometimes it's hundreds of square foot bigger.
Yeah. And I'm a very big stickler to square footage because that's going to make you or break you when it comes to the square footage and the value that comes out of it. The square footage. I'm very technical. I have my laser. I was maybe one of the first folks here in Houston with the laser device. I was one of the first people with a computer and a printer in my car to do assignments and do appraisals out here. But square footage, oh my goodness, it can mean so much because they're saying, well. And another thing is, I used to work for the county in Colorado, so I know what they do in order to get that information. A lot of people don't realize that.
I learned this from you.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the county has these planes every 2 years or every 1 year, not Google Maps or nothing, where they fly over, crisscross, and take pictures from every angle, and they get close up. I was able to tell what kind of brand of barbecue grill you had. That's how close it would get. And what would happen was, if they didn't know a perfect example that I did in Sealy, okay, they said it was 2,600 square feet. Well, there is the house, and then in the back, you see the roof. Well, the back part is a patio, huge patio. And so I'm like, oh, that's what they did. They did an aerial and squared it off and say, oh my goodness, that's 2,600 square feet. But they also count the overhang of that roof. So they're adding extra square footage
because they can't see what's actually on ground. They're counting the whole square footage and measuring off and say, okay, well that's what your square footage has to be.
Yeah. Now, if you got a good system, because not every county can afford a good aerial photography. Okay, the further you go out rural, the less you pay.
Yeah.
So you're doing the angles. I remember doing it back in Colorado. It was, it was this and that, and boom, 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 done. But I can see where there's a lot of wrong square footage, and they pay the taxes on this forever. And then like this 2,600 square foot house ended up being, oh goodness, like 1,700 square feet.
Yeah.
Big, huge difference. That's why you need an appraiser to measure the house, because, oh yeah, I'm getting a 2,600 square feet living space, and what happens is that for so darn long, they've been saying living space, they would include the garage, they would include the patio and the front porch. But then they said, wait a minute. And people started getting in trouble for that and going to court. Hey, you did this and that. And next thing you know, the realtor needs to be paying whoever gave them that report, boom, penalty fee, or you got to pay for the difference or for what they lost when they try to turn around. When they try to turn around and sell it, that's when they start saying, what the heck?
Exactly. This is where it's supposed to get interesting, guys. You got to pay attention to this, okay?
Yeah.
Look, you go and buy a property. You think it's 2,400 square feet, all right? Because the tax records say it's 2,400 square feet. But you got an overhang or a bigger garage or whatever. Square footage counts for air-conditioned space that is what? Livable and sealed off from the environment, right?
Yes.
So you can't just count a garage space that's air conditioned. I have that in my house.
Yeah.
I've even called you on it.
Yeah.
I said, hey, look, I'm adding this AC unit to my garage. You know, would that count as live? No, it doesn't, because that garage door opens and closes. So it's not sealed off from the environment.
Yeah.
Is it livable? If I was to take the garage door off,
yeah, of course,
yes, and not come up and down, and maybe put some sealing around it, yes, okay, great. But to make a point, you go to sell the property. You thought it was 2,400 square feet. When you sell it for a long-term loan, they're automatically, it doesn't matter if it's non-QM, it doesn't matter if it's an Airbnb, it doesn't matter anything if you're going to hold it or if you're going to sell it to an end buyer.
Exactly.
And they're going to require an appraisal if they're not paying cash.
Exactly.
And now it measures out to 2,100 square feet. You're selling it for $300,000.
Yep.
Or at 2,400 square feet, it comes back at 2,100 square feet and appraises at 250. You've lost all your equity.
Yep. Yeah, I see it. I've seen it many times. Before I moved to Colorado, I was working for an attorney for cases like this, doing retroactive appraisals. And of course, they back then in the day, I don't know how they do it now, but they'll say, well, if you can't get my deal done, we'll just get another appraiser. So they end up getting another appraiser to, I don't know, finagle. But this is back in 2000 or late 2000s. And then I would go back and say, okay, they will give me the report, and I can say, okay, let me go check measure the house, and they would add like the porch to this living area, or they didn't measure correctly, or that's another thing. That's another thing. That's another big deal. Where did they get the comps from?
Yeah.
Where did they get them from?
I love this. I love this.
They used to go out. Okay. I'm gonna say there's a great place up not too far from here, 1960. It's just a plethora of different little communities, little sections. Okay, we're gonna say Oak Ridge Forest, right? All right, cool, no problem. And then we have Oak Ridge Terrace. Big difference. Now, when I hear forest, that's a community. Okay. Little houses. Terrace, I don't know why they always do this. They're always like patio homes. Okay. With zero lot lines.
It's in Wood Forest.
Yeah.
Wood Forest has the exact same thing. It's a brand new community up in Montgomery County. But go ahead.
Yeah. So let's just say, but for some reason, these terrace homes, they're selling for like $50,000 more. It's like, ooh, wonder why.
It's a patio home.
It's a patio home, or they're better built, they look better, or they're more in demand, folks. And these are one stories. So elderly folks or whatever, they don't want, they'd go in there. It's just, and maybe the different builders too in the style. So what they'll do, say, the sales price is $275, and they go, where? And I'm looking at comps in this neighborhood in Oak Ridge Forest, and oh my goodness, they're about maybe $240, $250. I'm like, where in the heck are you finding these from? I don't even ask them. I just know what to do. So I go, okay, I know what they're doing. So I'll go over here. So I just expand it. I'm like, okay, what's this? I'm like, So that's when I reach out and say, hey, where are you getting your comps from? And they tell me. I'm like, okay. So
I'm getting it in the same subdivision. That's where they're getting their comps from. The same subdivision.
Yeah. Oh, it's a 1 mile radius.
Yeah, 1 mile radius.
Oh, no. There's the 1 mile radius and all that stuff. It's a farce.
It is.
Yeah.
Unless it's in the same subdivision. and the subdivision's bigger than a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah. But hey, don't let that fool you.
Mm-hmm.
You could be in one subdivision at the front of the neighborhood where all the houses are new, are old, and then you go towards the back, different builder, different quality, different type of home, and then boom, your value goes up.
Another thing that I do because I know, is it a flood zone or not?
Yes.
Most appraisers won't know that.
Yes.
I here in Cypress Creek, I can go to a neighborhood and I can just say, okay, this here floods. I just know already. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just have the whole flood map system stamped into my brain for doing so many. So that's what an appraiser does. A good appraiser will know, okay, I know what they're doing. It may not be Torres. It may be another neighborhood called Sierra Green, but it's within 1 mile. Mm-hmm. And that's what they'll do. They'll just put everything in there together. So that's the purpose of having a good appraiser, because somebody can, and there's a lot of good realtors that know what they're doing and this and that, but every so often, there's some that just they're doing the best for their clients, and that's it. I can't blame them, but for somebody like me, I'm like, hey, look, on this, because you just got to stick to, you got your Ford, you got your Chevy, you got your Lamborghinis, you got your trucks. You got to stay within not every neighborhood's the same. They're very unique to themselves.
Now let me ask you a question, and this is a big misconception against clients versus the lender. Who do you represent when an appraisal is ordered?
Under USPAP guidelines, whoever engages you for a service, for evaluation, that is the client.
Okay.
Yes, and your client is the borrower. So I have a fiduciary responsibility to the person who engaged me,
which would be the lender, correct? In this circumstance.
In this circumstance, the lender, yes. And every so often I'll get somebody, hey, my friend, realtors, please help me out. Help me list it. Stuff like that. That's the client.
Okay.
So if somebody else calls me, hey, can you give me a copy of the report? And I go, I gave you a copy. I gave the lender. They should technically, it's common to give you the report, a copy of it. And sometimes,
is the lender required to give a copy of the appraisal?
No.
Okay. Please explain why the lender never has to give a copy of the appraisal, because who do you represent again?
The lender.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they're going to say, well, I paid for it. I go, yes, you did. You paid for it through them. You paid them and they paid me.
Yes.
Okay. It's just like,
you want to close a loan. There's an expenses for closing a loan. Okay. You're paying for the service of certifying that appraisal was done to a professional standard. Yeah. Now, typically we always give a copy, but that's just something we do.
Yeah.
But there's lenders out there that'll say, no, you're not getting a copy of this appraisal, period. You're not entitled to it.
Well, one of the reasons why, for me, once I give it to the lender, it's out of my hands.
Yes.
Okay. They can do whatever they want. One of the reasons why is because there's a lot of competition, and they'll go, we got an appraisal, we're gonna take it to your competition.
Yeah.
And that's the part where, I get the phone call, I get phone calls every 2 months. Can you change this? I'll go, no. And it just depends what it is, or if it's a client that I've worked with before, I go, it's a fee. Oh, really? Why? I'm like, because you're not the main client.
Yeah.
I have to change everything to your name. You have to engage me.
And if time's passed, you got to go reinspect the property.
Oh God, yes. Right now, the way things are right now, look, for me as an appraiser, I'm looking at data, and I can tell you right now that what I'm seeing, most people aren't going to want to hear it, So I'm on it. I'm always freaking on what's happening. I don't know everything, but from my own work, I can see what's happening from all the way to Pearland, so and so, further down, all the way to Conroe. I can see all the neighborhoods. And sometimes in the morning, I wake up, I doodle around, I play around and say what's going on in the market. Because, me too, as an investor, I'm looking for homes and I'm seeing, I have my MLS set up in a certain way. And there's little arrows if they tell you the price is going down or up or down.
Yeah, they'll send you alerts.
No, I just see them. The way I have my system set up, I say everything in the neighborhood, and I can just see arrows up or down, up or down, up or down, and in Beaumont too. So I have a mental picture of what's going on. So somebody will call me, well, the market is doing great. I go, right now the market is changing every 2 or 3 months, man.
And there's supposed to be a flip, and people don't realize that. There's supposed to be a huge flip. I mean, we've already seen buyers fatigue. That's already happening. Buyers fatigue is a real thing. If you don't think it's not happening, it is. There's been 4,000 actives increase over the last month and a half.
Yeah,
that's gonna eventually drive this from a seller's market to a buyer's market. More inventory you have, the more that you're gonna switch from, okay, well, hey, now I've got plenty of inventory to choose from. Guys, look, markets do not stay bull markets forever, especially even in real estate.
Do you know why that's that's happening right now? This is where a good appraiser, this is what I tell folks. I'm not an appraiser. I study property economics and I interpret it into a form. Okay, that's the way I look at it. Do you know why there's no more buyers, does anybody know why we had this boom, this little boom?
Well, I mean, I would speculate, and this is just speculation. One, people were scared to list their house. So inventories were low because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
They were scared. That's honestly what I thought.
Okay.
Two.
Yeah. Okay.
Interest rates are so low, people are selling to go buy their forever home.
Yes.
Because they wanted that forever home and they saw an opportunity.
Yeah.
Another reason why appraisers are so busy right now is because everybody's in this refinancing stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as far as inventory, I think it's the two reasons I listed. One, people were scared to move or make a big change during the pandemic. And two, people were selling and going to buy the forever home.
Well, but recently we've had this little boom of just people buying. People are saying, oh, yeah, the market's great. These builders, the builders aren't building. They're building only so much. They're not building for new home buyers. Johnny and Liz and Juan and Teresa moved out of their home. They want to start a family. That was back in the 2000s. That's when new home buyers. The people that are buying now are existing
home buyers.
Yeah, that came to Houston, everywhere else, and it just created a demand. That's why they were saying, I'll pay you this much and this more and more, and the whole market went up. Now they're done. They're not moving in anymore. Now they're having competition with some other folks, other entities, other hedge fund managers or companies
buying up rentals.
Yes, and we can go into that, but that's a whole different story there, and we can touch on that as an appraiser. But that group of people are done. So now they're like, people are saying, "Oh, what happened? What's going on?" And it's like, "Oh, well, it's like, what do we do?" Well, you got to put a bigger carrot or an extra carrot on there to bring folks in, and that's basically lowering the prices. Are we going to get there? I'm starting to see it, but again, if these Blackstones and all these other folks are coming in and buying these houses for rental, they're still going to be able to sell, but they're buying them to get people, to push people out of the market. So the people that are here now, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the people that are buying now are probably the people who said, oh God, okay, we can finally get in and maybe buy something. So that's shifted.
Yeah, it's starting to shift. You're absolutely right. It's starting to shift. The buyer is the buyer's market is starting to become more of a thing than a seller's. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, I had some good friends. They saw an opportunity. The kids are out of their house. They literally said, you know what? I'm out.
Yeah.
Put their house on the market, sold it for huge gain.
Yeah.
And they bought a travel trailer and they're
gone. Nice.
They're gonna live their life on the road.
I've been looking at trailers too, man.
Hey, I told my wife. I talked to my wife. I said, hey, look, when we get rid of the kids, not get rid of them, but when they get out of the house,
yeah,
we may do that.
Gone.
Just be gone in our twilight.
Yeah, one is because of where I'm at now, I have more of a leisure time, sort of. Let me finish my other houses first. I got to get these things on rented quick.
So Al is not just an appraiser; he is also a real estate investor himself. He's got a couple of properties that he's currently rehabbing to get put out there as rentals.
Yeah.
So that's why we use him a lot, because he understands investors. He understands. Let's kind of dive into what it takes to be a hard money asset-based lender appraiser.
Ooh. One, I think an appraiser that wants to get into that better have a very good idea on building a house, the mechanics, the structures. I'm not talking about codes or anything, but things that will.
The cost.
The cost.
Lumber.
Yes. Oh God.
Materials.
Yes. Contracting. When I put the price of something, that includes contract, contract work and materials. But a good appraiser, I run across a lot of appraisers, and they're good technically, but when it comes to certain specifics, the roof, what kind of roof that, architectural,
30 year
tab. Yeah,
that's the only thing that in our industry, mainly jet lending, that is one of our main requirements. You must put a 30-year roof on the property, 30-year architectural shingles. We do not reimburse for anything else because your long-term lender is going to look. Why'd you put a 25-year roof on it? Why didn't you just go put a 30-year roof on it?
Yeah,
you're saving dollars.
Yeah,
on the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Like you can literally, it may be a couple of $100 more for, a 2,000 square foot house to put. I mean, why would you do that when you can get 5 more years out of it and it looks better?
Oh, it does. I like buying houses that I can just go in there and gut them. Like in my Winnie houses, you've seen some of the videos. I'm under the crawl space putting plumbing with all the creepy crawlies and everything. I'm hands-on. I had to redo an electrical job that my electricians did just because I wanted to look prettier. Okay. The way I have it inside the bathroom, I have an on-demand hot water heater, windows, type of material. A good appraiser not only should be spending a lot of time on the appraisal process, they should spend a lot of time at Home Depot, at Lowe's, at these shows, at the construction sites, be able to read blueprints. I can read blueprints because when you go into a house, I tell folks in a jokingly serious way, I'm one of those appraisers. They go, what? I know everything about that house, the material. I open up drawers, see what kind of material is made out of. Is it the paper over the particle board, or is it custom with how many? There's been cases just talking to somebody. I counted how many layers of plywood on that drawer it had. The more stable, the longer lasting. During the floods, those drawers that had those plies back from the old days,
they'll last.
I'm like, everything's gutted, but the cabinets are still fine. They didn't even swell up. Well, one, maybe because the water went out fast. So little things I pay attention to. Do you have aluminum windows? Do you have vinyl frame windows? What condition are they in? The tile. I can tell on tile. If it's just cheapy tile, I'll get very close up to it. Or I can tell a cheap little tile. They don't bake on the top layer. They screen it. They silk screen it, and you can see the little matrix dots on there. So that's why it costs 85 cents. Okay, So if you want, I can tell right away on those things. A good appraiser, because there's three things people say, oh, it's the price of the house that's going to make the people want to buy it. I go, no,
it's not. It's your finishes that's going to make somebody want to buy it. You can sit there and say, oh, well, I'm just going to do plain Jane, and make it blah, 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 blah. Yeah. As soon as that wife walks into that house, and she's looked at 15 that day, by the way, that is if you're selling the property. If you're doing rental, plain Jane's fine. Plain Jane's fine. Just do it to where it is livable, rentable, and put your renter in there, and you're good to go. And let it build up equity.
There's truth to that, but this is what I tell folks. You can have the redo it and everything. It's the people's reactions that is going to determine how they're going to view that house and how much are they willing to give up of their money. Okay, you can go to a house and say, oh, wow, it's very well kept. It has the original components. And what I mean, let's just say the kitchen cabinets, and they put granite, stainless steel appliances. Oh, wow.
Hood vents, the modern hood vents.
Yes. Maybe they changed the tile to wood floors. Okay. But the wood floors that are maybe laminate, I can tell right away what kind of wood floors they are. Just I can tell. They go, okay, it's 150. All right, they go, it's fine. Let's keep looking.
Yeah, let's keep looking, because they didn't fall in love with this as they walked through the door.
Yes. Now they go to the other house and they go, wow. They can see the
flow, the pop, the feeling you get when you walk through the front door.
Yes, and sometimes that has to do with the materials, the paint. Crown molding does so much. It's amazing. But this one's 220.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's an identical house as the other one for the 150. Okay, so like, oh wow, but we can only afford 175. Okay, 175 of a loan. Okay, or whatever they have for cash. So that 220, they're like, oh, it's out of their range. So then they go to the next house. They go, oh my God, what the hell? What? It never changed. It's still 1990s. It still smells like 2000s, and the carpets, everything's yellowed. But they're selling it for 100. So they're trying to say, we want this house. What can we do? They go, what can we do? We'll give you 210. Or they go, we love this house, but we can't afford it. It's all 175. That's where you negotiate.
Yeah.
Or they can say, what will it take for this house to be like this house? Because this 220 house, new cabinets, new faucets, new lights, everything
new.
The original components are gone. And see, those are the things an appraiser pays attention to. I do. It's like, I look at the cabinets. I look at the windows. I go, are those original? I can even tell on the cabinet, are they from Home Depot or Lowe's? I can tell. Or are they from that off the freeway cabinets and granite countertops all for one price type of cabinets? I can tell. And there's times where I can say, oh, wow, there's somebody that came in here and did the work by hand. It's a craftsmanship. But then again, I've seen some craftsmanship stuff that I'm like, what? Awful. You cabinets hitting, horrible. So they'll go back and say, okay, what do we do? Can we do this 220? Or they'll negotiate. But they said, you know what? For an extra $25,000, we'll buy the 150. We'll use the extra $25,000 to make it like this house.
A value add.
Yes. Exactly. So that's where the price comes in. And that's where you get prices established in neighborhoods based on the home. And by me going into those homes, I can say, now I know why they pay for this much. And then when I'm looking for my comps, that's another thing people don't realize. As an appraiser, we go through a plethora. I've literally gone through 100 each picture and open up the photos and look at it.
It takes time.
It takes time. It does. It really does.
And guys, what y'all also have to understand, and I want to get back to this. Comps a mile out. If you're crossing major streets, major intersections, going from one side of the highway to the next, 288's a good explanation. Well, you just did one over there. Good side, bad side of 288. There's Rice Military, district over there.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And then you on the other side, you've got
you're saying 288. That's Pearland.
I'm not 288. What is it?
I-10. Yeah.
What runs down Third Ward? That's 288, isn't it?
288.
Going heading
south.
Yeah, heading south.
Oh, you're saying Rice Military is off of Washington and I-10.
Okay.
Like Memorial.
Okay, maybe I'm
no, but I know
different.
That's a good example. You're talking about south. Okay, I know.
Third Ward.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Now this is, I think I'm getting what you're saying. You got to stick to one neighborhood.
Yeah, you got to stick to one neighborhood. You got
market area.
You can't cross major streets. You can't cross over into another neighborhood and say, well, it's within a mile, because what he said earlier, one, it could be a different builder in that neighborhood. Even though it's less than a mile away, it could be a total different builder. You got, when you're pulling polys in Houston, sometimes you have no choice but to pull a polygon. Do not cross major streets. Do not cross major intersections. Do not cross major highways, because you're going to get different data.
Try not to.
Yeah.
And again, this is where a good appraiser will say what's going on. Okay. I know just from doing so many and being in all these market areas that now these, like, let's just say a highway, any highway, there's this market area everybody's buying. What happens is it gets saturated, and the prices are just too much. Or one, they're just saturated. They're done. It's been, grandma is still living at home. So we're going to have to wait another 5-10 years until we can get the house and redo it. So what happens, this market, so the people that are looking for homes here, they're saying, where else can we look? Well, why don't we look on the other side of the freeway? See the influence?
Yeah.
So now they're going across the street, across the major highway, or street. It can be Washington, it can be Ella, it can be TC Jester, or it could be Cullen, anywhere. So they're saying, well, where do we get comps? Well, a good appraiser is going to say, I know what's happening here. It's oversaturated, and prices are probably inflated. So they're going to go, you know what, over here, we're going to go over here. So where do we find comps? And they're selling for the same prices down here. But a good appraiser would know that. So if I have to, there's no comps over here or anything like it, because this house has been totally rehabbed or it's new construction. Where are they getting their comps? Well, I now know that these folks are jumping over here saying there's nothing over here anymore. So they're going over here with influence. But these people are saying, we're willing to pay exactly what's on the other side of the freeway. You see? Because they're getting a house maybe with 2 bathrooms, with maybe bigger, a 3-car garage.
Alex has a question. What does Al think about markets that are still transitioning, and how does he think about transitioning areas?
Okay, when you say transitioning areas,
I think he means going from non-rehabbed areas to areas that are starting to come up and be rehabbed.
What do I think? There's always going to be a demand to live somewhere. People are going to be moving. People are going to be moving in. Grandma and grandpa have passed away. The kids don't have no money to pay the taxes, so they sell it off. Markets that are still transitioning. How does he think about transitioning areas? People don't want grandma's old house, or they want to fix it up. They want to modernize it. They want to do that. So it goes in waves. It literally, like I said, it goes in waves. This area has been done. Now it's being gentrified on the other side. One thing to, I'm going to tell them, I don't want to give up all my secrets, but
don't give them all away.
Yeah.
Don't give them all away.
There are some homes that, you don't have to buy 1950s homes or anything. 1980s, 1990s, maybe some couple of early 2000s where they still have the original carpets. They still have the original tiles. They're in great shape, but a little change here and there, in these planned neighborhoods, it's another area to start looking into, because, well, one, things can change. People are moving, work, or whatever. The transitioning part, there's always going to be anywhere. I see it all the time in little towns, and I go to Beaumont, Port Arthur, and all that stuff all the time.
Alex said, how does an appraiser look at valuing a lower end area that is becoming higher end, like Fifth Ward?
How does an appraiser look at valuing a lower area?
So Fifth Ward is at one point in time was a very low end area.
Yeah.
It's kind of moved in waves, like you're talking about. It'll go up and then it'll go down and then it'll go up, and right now it's stayed up.
What's going to happen to those homes in the long run? Okay. I've been doing stuff on the east side. There's a lot of townhomes, 3-story, 2-story, and they're just pushing them into these lots. To me, it seems like it's slowed down on that end. Okay. One, because economic impacts. What transitioning, the reason there's transitions or demand is, one, could be an economic impact. It could be a environmental impact. People saying, we don't want to live here anymore. Too many hurricanes. Oh, I hate the cold. Maybe it could be political. So they move to certain areas. That's what drives
that's what drives a lot of people to Texas.
Like in Fifth Ward, my brother, he loves the east side. He loves that area. He wish he would have bought a house a long time ago. I like the west side. Okay, we're just different, but
you're in Katy area.
Yeah,
right?
I'm in Katy. Yeah. So, but there's, I'm looking around, and I don't. It's if it's going to transition. One, you got to ask yourself, what's happening economically wise. Okay. We can get into that, the economics, or what I'm seeing as an appraiser, where the market's going, but Fifth Ward, again, it all has to do saying, you know what, my friends live here, my aunts live here, but I am now a doctor. Yeah. I want a nice I've seen huge freaking corner lots with these huge houses where,
and it's right near my the hospital. I want to live right where I'm going to be working.
Yes, or they want to live where they grew up.
Or they're a professor.
Yeah,
right there.
And they love it. They love going to the local restaurants. They grew up. They feel comfortable. Families there, so they buy a lot and they just build. And at the same time, the local folks, they don't want to live. They don't feel comfortable in other areas than what other people would. Okay, I feel comfortable where I'm at, but I can also be comfortable over here. But it just depends the comfort. Houston has so many sections. It's amazing. It's like little counties to themselves in Houston. It's just you cross the freeway or the highway.
You get a total different feel.
Yes,
different feel.
Yeah.
You can go 2 miles into Houston. You can have like comfort Southern living. You can go 2 miles across the street.
You got Chinatown.
Yeah. Or you can go 2 miles in another direction, and now you're more modern.
Yeah. Exactly.
Modern feel. Like the kids are liking nowadays.
And that's the value of a good appraiser. He
knows
sees
the difference.
All that. Yeah. Ask a realtor, where do you go? I'm just right here.
Yeah.
Just right here.
Right here in this little polygon.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's all they know.
Yeah. But they're listing a house in Katy, and normally they do business or they're living and know the area, and they're living downtown.
Yeah, and exactly. And that's fine. There's a lot of good realtors. They work their butts off, stay there for over 10 years. And they're doing now very well. You got to give them credit. They know things that I can say I don't know, because they talk to the people. They hear things. Me, appraisers, we're hermits. We're very, we come out and just to see the sun, to see if it's morning or day or night. Okay.
Let's kind of get a little bit back on track.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna ask some some pretty specific questions here. One, you're a buyer.
Mm-hmm. Buyer.
And you're getting a loan.
Yeah.
What are the dangers of not having an appraisal? Let's kind of recap real quick.
You might be buying a house that's overinflated. Somebody has an interest in that house to be oversold.
Mm-hmm. Like maybe who? A wholesaler?
A wholesaler.
Mm-hmm. Or just a seller in general, just to make as much money as they can.
Exactly. They think, well, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. It's worth this much. Wholesaler.
Or the accurate square footage.
Accurate square footage. A realtor is the same thing per square foot. Well, this house is per square foot, the average. And those are some of the dangers.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a cookie cutter neighborhood, easy. But if it's like, if you have a single story and everything else is 2-story, you have to say, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
You go, that's where, and that's where an appraiser says, okay, what other neighborhoods compete with this house that are single story?
Mm-hmm.
And, a good area, 1960. A bunch of 2 stories. Every so often you'll find a 1-story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know from all the way from I-45 all along 1960 all the way up to what do you call it? The toll road. Is that toll road? 288.
Hardy?
No, not Hardy. The one for Tomball.
Oh, Tomball. That's 249.
Yeah, 249. So everything from 249 to I-45. I know all those neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Champions Forest, all that.
Ponderosa, all of that. Below Cypress Creek. And I know most of them are 2 stories, and every so often, and I'll go over there and look and say, okay, what are these? Because they're all competing with each other. And I say, what are 1 stories selling for?
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, 1 story they're selling for more than
the 2 stories.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. It's crippled. Some of us.
You got a larger buying force that wants single story, especially with the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that don't like having an upstairs. My wife was against it, and I'm like, no, I want a 2-story. I want a big boy house.
Yeah.
And now I should have listened to her because we hardly ever go upstairs.
Hey, I had a 3,800 square foot house, 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, 3-car garage, both formals and a study. And the kids were all upstairs, and it was great because I never saw the mess.
That's kind of my theory. I was like, hey, eventually they're all going to be upstairs. All the kids are going to be upstairs, and I ain't got to worry about the mess.
Yeah,
and
life changes affect on what they're looking for.
Exactly.
Okay. So the question was for what inflates a house? What's the importance of it? Of making sure the price is right, because you can be buying something. They're saying, so where are you getting your comps? And they're going to say, oh, it's around a radius. We have to look for comps. Well, your house may be in a 150 average $1,000 price, and they're jumping into a neighborhood that it's 175.
Mm-hmm.
And say but it's a 1 mile area. That's the rule. That's the fair market area. The fair market.
I honestly think, and this is why we do it. We try our best to do an analysis on every property. We do. We don't try. We do. We do an analysis on every property. It goes through 3 sets of eyes. It'll go through my eyes. Mm-hmm. It'll go through Johnny's eyes, and then it goes through Eddie's eyes. 3 sets of eyes look at every property. That's 3 different opinions of value before we ever order an appraisal.
It's good. That's very good.
It's very good.
Yes.
It's part of underwriting. I can always throw some numbers on a paper that you give me and say, this is what your loan's going to look like. Mm-hmm. But when I send it to you, you're going to take a look at it, and you're going to be like, that doesn't make any damn sense.
What are they doing?
What are they doing over there? Okay, fine. They think it's worth. We don't ever tell them what we think it's worth. Never share that information because that's a conflict of interest. We just say, hey, look, here's an appraisal. But he'll call me sometimes and say, this purchase price doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Hell, they're buying it for retail. And we'll be like, now this rarely happens. Rarely happens. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Let us go back. Why do you say that? And you're like, blah, 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 blah. Here's the reasons. I'll go back to Eddie, and he's like, you know what? We missed that.
Yeah.
Now that rarely happens, but
a perfect case, the one I just finished doing, it shows up on the tax record and MLS as single family property. Well, it's being sold to be converted into a fourplex. I'm like, I get it. Okay, that makes sense. And that's what
highest and best use.
Yes, exactly. Or another highest and best use is tear it down and build 6 townhomes. It's a huge freaking lot. I'm like, wow. If you don't buy it, I'll buy it. Oh, when I start thinking that way is because I see the value in it. Okay, and that's where I crunch the numbers. And believe me, I was hearing, and that's a perfect example of why
you need an appraiser.
An appraiser, because I'm like, okay, and I'm looking at these comparables. And I'm saying, okay, some of these fourplexes had AC units.
And some didn't.
And some didn't. They have HVACs.
Okay,
HVACs. So I look at that and square footage, and I'm saying, okay, I got one here in the same side of 45. I said, you know what? Let me go, because the MLS crosses on the other side of 45 in the college areas. So I said, let me see what's going on over there.
Okay.
I'm not seeing that huge disparity as before. And this was where we're talking about transitioning, Alex, that here is saturated. Now all this demand is transitioning to the other neighborhood where that fourplex could have been $100,000 to $200,000 difference. Okay, not anymore, because now they're saying, man, these fourplexes are gone. So where do we go now? They're going over here now, because there's still kids.
School districts make a difference.
Yeah, colleges.
Colleges. It even can come down to middle schools. One middle school is better than the other middle school.
Yes,
not high schools. We're talking about middle schools. Like you're there for like what, 2 years?
Yes.
2 years. If you've got kids in the same daggum neighborhood, you'll have 2 different middle schools and it splits right down the middle. It happens in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
You got
perfect example.
In my neighborhood, you've got a brand new middle school at the beginning of the neighborhood, and literally less than 2 miles away, they just built a new middle school, high school, full campus for grades 1 through 12. It's a full campus. The people in the back of the neighborhood go to that one, and the people in the front of the neighborhood go to the one in the front. There's a split right down the middle. Guess what? The properties in the back of the neighborhood in my neighborhood alone are newer, bigger, and they have a brand new middle school and high school to go to. The ones in the front of the neighborhood have an older appeal, older builders, not the same, smaller square footage. They go to the older middle school, brings the value down. It's already starting to happen. And it's same neighborhood, same different sections.
When I started seeing, again, you got to know your market areas, and I know the real prominent areas that the schools impacted. And I think I did. This one goes way back. There was one. Why is there a $50,000 difference or 75? I go, just because it's across the street. Boom, it goes up because it goes to this school, and this ones don't. Real perfect example, and this is where you have a good appraiser. Again, a perfect example. I think I did another one. The comps again. The comps was like, why is it? And then when they send me the comps, I'm like, you're using comps from this school district. That's why. And sometimes you would say, but they're just right here. What's the difference? So that's where I start saying, okay,
Yeah.
Boundaries and zones.
Hey, but I would tell you this. When I first started out, none of that made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
None of it. I was just like, but it's the same house.
Yeah.
It's the same. And I could look at comps. Same house, same neighborhood. I mean, you look at the front to the back. And Herb Jameson, I don't know if you know who he is. He's an older gentleman. Mm-hmm. He's one of our appraisers. We actually sat down for about 2 hours on a phone call, and he taught me about school districts.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And said, you got to understand, in this school district, you got better teachers, you got more prevalent of people wanting to go to that school.
Mm-hmm.
It's their rating is higher. And all these other things that come into play, like people say, no, I want to be in that school district. I don't want to be in that school district.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, even high schools like in Katy. Wow. Cinco, Taylor, Katy High School. Wow. Again, I see the difference.
And this is important for investors to know because the reason why.
Especially here in Houston.
Yeah, especially here in Houston. If you go and blindly get a loan on a property that you're gonna flip, rehab, do whatever, and you're enticed because the lender says no appraisal, can close quick, and low docs, low fees because we don't require an appraisal. You're hurting yourself. Mm-hmm. Because when you go to refi, especially if it's a buy and hold, and you get surprised on the fact that you can't cash out your value on it, or even get a rate and term that you've got to bring more money to the table to even get it on a long-term loan, that hard money lender's counting on that. You know why? They want the asset.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
They want the asset in their inventory. So that money that they deployed, you've already rehabbed it, and you can't get it refinanced. Mm-hmm. They're just going to term you out, and they're going to extend you extension fees out the yin yang to where you're sitting there like, I can't afford this property anymore. Mm-hmm. And now you're paying 18% when you started off at like a low rate. And now you're paying 18% and you've run out of money. Property's rehabbed. You've already got renters in place. All they want to do is predatory lending.
Yeah, exactly. And now, now that the way things are, because the buyers are, done. So now they're coming out with, we're coming back. They've proposed, and I don't know if they started yet, low doc loans, basically subprime loans, back again. And I'm like, okay, here we go again. So,
they're calling it something different. It's a total different bubble. It's not subprime. It's they're calling it something totally different, and it's dangerous. But I mean, in this investment world, you've got to know what your values are. You've got to know.
I'm gonna give you a good example for investors that I get a lot. Oh, my house is worth this much, this and that, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, give me your comps. And they'll send them over, and I'm like, okay, what are you doing to it? Oh, how many bathrooms are you? Because I know in certain neighborhoods, bathrooms are a big deal, and some there's so many homes also that the garages are converted. And I said, how many? Well, it's worth this much. You don't know what you're talking about. So I'll get that, okay?
We get it too.
Yeah, and
we get it. We get it all the time. We'll call a client, and I've said this on this show multiple times. It is never in my benefit to call you and tell you you're wrong on your ARV.
Yeah.
It's always a benefit for me to say, hey, your numbers are right on the market. Let's get this appraisal order and close this sucker.
Yeah.
Never. Because when I deliver bad news to you, you're automatically taking it as I don't want to do the loan. That's crap.
Yeah.
I don't get paid to do a free analysis on your property. I only get paid when you go sit in a closing seat at the end of the month, the beginning of the month, anytime during that month.
Yeah.
I got closings today. If they don't happen, I don't get paid on them.
Yep.
That's the only time I get paid. He gets paid as soon as he goes and does that appraisal. He gets paid. But the lender, doesn't matter if it's the lending company or the loan officer, unless you're sitting your butt in a closing, I don't get paid. So it's no benefit for me to pick up the phone and say, Bob, I just don't see these numbers. I think your ARV, here's the reason. I had a perfect example this week. Guys thought the ARV was about 185. It's on a 1,600 square foot lot. The house was 565 square feet. I remember this because I had to call him.
Okay.
And he said, no, I think it's worth 190. I called him. I said, these are the factors that we see.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the property's in Galveston.
Mm.
Yes, you can probably make a great Airbnb out of this.
Mm.
Doesn't need a whole lot of rehab.
Yeah.
About maybe 15, 20,000.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 15, a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good looking house. But you're paying pretty much market value for this property.
Mm.
And he said, no, that's not true. I was like, dude, you're on a 1,600 square foot lot.
Wow, that's small.
Yeah.
And how big is the house? 500?
500 square foot.
Wow.
So,
Eesh.
guys, that's about all the time we got today for Trigger Points. We've gone. I'd love to have you back.
Yeah,
we can talk about appraisals a little bit more. I mean, we could spend hours on this.
Yeah, one of the so I was gonna go over hit on the everybody uses the per square foot area, the per square foot thing, and I was gonna tell them, look, they say, well, I go, okay, this is something just real quick. What happens is that when they say, I got a little something I was thinking about yesterday, like, okay. Let's say you buy a house that's $250,000 and it's 2,500 square feet. Well, that's $100 per square foot. Well, what you got to do is take out the lot, the price of the lot. Let's just say the lot is worth $30,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 250 divided by 2,500, and we'll take it off. Now it's 220. Now, another thing you got to take out is the garage. So that's $20,000 to build. So now you're dealing with $200,000 to build the house per square foot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get our base for square footage to when we make adjustments. But if you go through other houses, one house is it's sold for $300,000 and it's sold for it's 3,500 square feet. Now it's $81 per square foot.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get another house that's 3,000 square feet, but it's sold for $275. Now it's $70 per square foot. Okay.
The bigger houses are selling for less.
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah. And I see that. So the thing is, how do you make your adjustment? It's per square foot. It's $100, $90, $96. I go, no, you take all this out and then you figure out to construct the house.
How much?
Okay.
Yeah.
And within, let's just say it's a $10, $15 difference. And that's where we find our adjustments per se. Within that, we have to make our adjustments for surplus. Same thing. So we're not going to use $86 or $75. What we want to do is equalize all the homes with the lowest percentages of adjustments. Yeah.
You don't want to make those big adjustments.
No, that's a red flag.
That's a red flag right there.
Yeah, I'm like, what the heck?
So I'm going to have Al back probably in a month, and we're going to dive into this a little bit deeper because I think it's very important for investors to know why it's important to have appraisals ordered, why it's important, and I'm going to give you a chance to go home and think about that, and let's have you back, and we'll talk about it even more in depth.
Yeah, it's there's a lot. There's a lot of. I can tell you some great stories, and I can also tell you some horror stories. And golly, it's an amazing industry. I'm fortunate enough to where I don't have to work 24/7 like I used to. But I know there's appraisers out there that are just, this is all they know. And this is what I tell everybody. Look, guys, scrub your appraiser very good. Develop a relationship.
And that's why we have guys that we turn to. We got 3 or 4 that we call on a regular basis for appraisals. Al's one of them. And we build those relationships and try to keep them.
And question the appraiser, how long you've been in the business, what areas you cover. Those things matter. Right now, everybody's just churning and burning. And, but I think all that's going to change very soon for other reasons. But other than that, man, it was great. Good
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes,
thank you so
definitely.
much. Guys, that's all the time we have for next week. We'll be back here on Friday and hope to see you there, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
My pleasure, man. Anytime.
All right.
Yeehaw, like I always say. Yeah. All right.